Caitlin Gerard, you played Aubrey Taylor on American Crime, and we've all now learned the fate of poor old Audrey. Spoiler alert: if you haven't seen it, poor Audrey kills herself at the end of the series. It was a really confronting and sad way to end this journey that we've taken with her, and so I'd really like for you to take us back to shooting those scenes and how difficult they must have been in saying goodbye to her.
It really was exactly that. I mean, I don't know how often one has the opportunity to play a character to its completion in this sort of way. You know, oftentimes characters live on, stories live on, and the fact that I experienced her from her beginning to her very ending was incredibly impactful. I mean, this character impacted my life so deeply that there was a very strong process it took for me to let go of her, and then yet again there's this part of me that will always have her. So it's been, those last scenes. I mean, sometimes one of the hardest scenes for me was actually the death scene where I'm not moving, where
Yeah.
I have to embody being dead, and it it was taxing in a psychological way that I don't think you or I was even prepared for.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I never thought of it that way. Because I keep thinking about what I love about the way this show was done. And I mean, there are many things that we all seem to really like about it, but one thing in particular was the way in which the camera would linger on people's faces for a while, and so that you can kind of like get into their headspace. And this scene was intercut with obviously Audrey was hallucinating when she sees Carter on the table and he comes back to life miraculously, and even I went with it. I was like, what's going on? This is amazing, it's a miracle. And then obviously no, she's dead, and it's like, sorry, rug pulled under you. That could have come across really pat or maybe even like a bit manipulative, but it didn't. It really just got me, and I think a lot of people really responded to that scene. I don't know, what was the feedback for you when people realized that Audrey was dead, but she did get to hallucinate that last moment of, coming together with the person that she loved.
Yeah, it's so funny. I haven't quite spoken with many people who have given me great detail. They've always just said, "Oh my God, the ending." They don't really have
Mhm.
any ability to communicate more beyond that, and that's kind of how I feel. I think that's how anyone feels about an ending, is just, "Oh God, the end." And what I picked up on what you said, which was a hallucination, is so funny because the way I felt while we were shooting that was our reunion.
Right,
So
right.
it it was for me, it was for Aubrey and Carter, that this was them coming together, and they were going to be unbound and limitless in passing. In passing, they live on forever. And
Wow. Yeah,
so
that's a great way to look at it. Mm.
yeah, and so there was a finality to it, but there was also this incredible liberation as well. These two characters just have struggled so much in their own right, in their togetherness, in their separation, that this ending to me was very much a setting free as well.
Yeah, I like that. That's good. Let's go with that. That's heaps better. Um, the response to your performance in this show has been, wow, who's Caitlin? Which this is your breakout, obviously. This is your breakout role. You had to do a lot. You had to go to a lot of dark places. You had a lot of tears. You were banged up a bit of a drug addict. So, it was a really, I think it would have obviously been a very challenging role to take. What did you do specifically to prepare for the more darker aspects of Audrey? Aubrey, sorry, not Audrey.
Okay. You know, to to be honest, there was, for me, playing Aubrey was an immense amount of physical exercise. There was just I had to be so connected to my body because I couldn't allow myself to think. It's almost like I had to let my body do the work, and to be in that state of mind, there was a lot of voice and movement exercises that I did to open myself up, to just kind of, I guess it's almost as if you could say fine-tuning an instrument. It involved daily exercises to just get myself open. And I know this is somewhat vague. It's just such a difficult process to describe. And the way I kind of feel about it looking back was it really was a sort of meditation. And it was kind of a sensation of opening up all these channels so that I could tap into something deep within me and do it in a sort of fearless, unbound manner. There was an interesting, and then finding little physical, I guess you could say, quirks that would get me there when I needed to. Because, on a set, there's preparation, there's time. You do one take, and then it takes 35 minutes for them to do the setup and get back to you, and you have to go right back into that place. And so something that I came up with, and it was all very organic. It kind of just happened to me. It wasn't something I necessarily knew I was going to do. The whole process with Aubrey was just such a phenomenal discovery, but I caught myself while I was waiting, while I would wait, I would catch myself doing this very deep hum that I kind of felt in my solar plexus. And I thought, I wonder if anyone can hear me. And then I thought, you know what? The only people who can hear me is sound, and they already think I'm crazy because so they just hear. But I spent a lot of time. Usually we have stand-ins who come in to stand in for us while we're doing a setup, and I actually really like being in the space I need to be in before we start shooting. So I felt bad. I kept apologizing to the stand-in because I was like, I'm sorry, do you mind if I just sit here, and everyone's doing their work around you, and it's kind of this chaotic whirlwind, and people are talking, but there's something grounding about finding a center and then just letting it go. It really did feel somewhat like a meditation, but it took a long, hard process to get there.
Yeah, I can imagine it would have, because she really is suffering and struggling with her addiction, and she's in a bad place, obviously, but it appears that every time she is on screen with the guy that she loves, Carter Nix, played by Elvis Nolasco, her whole, everything just becomes sunnier. And so I want to talk more about your interplay with him. He's just been nominated for a Critics' Choice Award, which is very cool. We'll talk about the award stuff later, but what happens to two actors when they pretty much play most of their scenes together through a series? Because you and Elvis really, that was one of the major stories of the whole series. And for people who haven't seen the show, Carter is the guy who is incarcerated for most of it. He's the chief suspect, and you're his lover, so to speak. And it both ends quite badly for both of them. What happened to the two of you? Does it really? Do you have to go to some really dark places? Do you have to go to some very intimate places? Did you learn a lot from that interplay with him?
Of course. I mean, I learned the value of partnership, and also, the value of individuality, and that we had to, when we shot the pilot, I found out that he meditated, and so I said, why don't we, every morning before we shoot, why don't we meditate together? And so we went through this regimen while we were shooting the pilot where we would meditate together, and then, or we would exercise together. Elvis had to lose an incredible amount of weight to play this part. And so he was constantly exercising. He had this water weight shedding bodysuit on, and I would go with him to the gym and we would work out together, and we kind of just created an intimacy in our breathing. It was very calm and very connected, and in that sense we kind of let go and allowed ourselves to trust each other. And what's really fascinating is that our characters are so connected throughout, and yet a majority of the season we're actually apart.
Yeah.
You know, we're together in the pilot, and then we're together in episode 5, and then we only see each other at the end again.
That's
And
very cool. I completely forgot about that because it doesn't
yeah,
feel that way.
yeah. So it was for me, for me in the scenes where we weren't together, it was really how I just kept this person who was so my everything, or Aubrey's everything, kept him so with her in every moment. He was there, he was there in in spirit, if you will. But because for Aubrey, it's all or nothing, and she loves with her whole heart completely. So as many people might have thought she had their opinions about her,
Yeah.
in my mind, everything she did was out of love, unconditional love, and she would be willing to do and sacrifice anything for that love.
Yeah, which she does. Things don't end up quite that good for her, but she does
No,
it because she's trying to be selfless. It's a
absolutely.
fascinating storyline. So, I mean, you must be feeling really lucky that you had that opportunity, not only for the character, but it's got quite an impressive cast. So, for people who aren't aware, most people know that Felicity Huffman and Timothy Hutton, one Emmy winner, one Oscar winner, were really leading the cast, but people like Regina King, Benito Martinez, Penelope Ann Miller, W.L. Brown, people that we've all seen before,
Yeah.
fantastic actors, but also people that we've not really seen much of, like
Yeah,
yourself.
like Brawl and Johnny Ortiz
Yeah,
and
Johnny Ortiz, Richard Cabral, like amazing performances. You didn't get to
phenomenal.
really play much with any of them, did you? Like, who, apart from your scenes with Carter and some of the other smaller roles played by people who were playing law enforcement, did you get a chance to act again with many of the other major cast members?
Well, no, I did not. I would say Elvis and I both very similarly I mean, Elvis played with Regina King as
Yeah.
well, but, my plot line was very isolated.
Mm.
And fortunately, we were with such an incredibly supportive community of actors that I spent a tremendous amount of time with Felicity Huffman going over our characters. We
Right.
spent long, long time. We would hang out together. She was such a a role model for me in this environment, and because we talked about, we shared our feelings about each other's characters, our opinions. What was so fascinating to me and what I embraced so fully is how eager she was to hear my opinion and what I had to give for her as much as what she was willing to give to me. And I just thought, oh God, it's such a gift for someone who is so vetted and experienced to still be able to be so open and embrace
Yeah.
younger, you know, artists. And so for me, that was really such an incredible experience, because I just thought, oh God, I want to be like her, because in that way I feel like she's always learning, she's always gaining, she's always growing, and there hasn't been a cap on her potential, because she's just so eager to learn from everyone and everything around her, which is something I would like to hope that I share with her. But so we got to do an incredible amount of work together on our characters, and the same goes with Timothy Hutton. We ran lines like you wouldn't imagine. I mean, we ran scenes over and over and over again, and there's that very big confession scene that I have in episode 109
Mm-hmm.
or 10. I believe
Eight
it's
or
no, it's
nine.
108.
Yeah.
Yeah, in 108, I have a very, very long confession scene, and Timothy Hutton and I just ran that. If we counted, it could be in the thousands. And It really was. I mean, we hours over a whole course of a week maybe, and that scene was actually shot in one take.
Mm.
There's no cut in that scene, and it's 6 minutes
Okay.
long.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
yeah, and it was that thing of having had it done it so much. The repetition had given me this freedom, and we were just able to go with it. And I think that it was about 6 pages, of just straight
Monologue.
dial, just
Mm.
a complete breakdown of the entire murder.
Yeah. Here we go. Yeah.
So I was very surprised when I saw it that John Ridley and the DP Ramsey Nichol were able to keep it in one suspended shot. I mean, it kind of how you said how it stays on a character, and there are great moments like that where you just don't cut away and you get to see something evolve that's really phenomenal. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just
It's pretty
so.
special. In John Ridley, we all know what he's capable of. Obviously, Oscar winner for 12 Years a Slave. He brings to this story, obviously, a whole uh, issue that is, very important right now in America, and all over the world, really. Felicity Huffman, who I spoke to last week, said it beautifully when she said American crime is not just about the crime itself that we are following throughout the 11 episodes, but it's really about the crime of racism and how endemic it is and entrenched it is in society. This ripped from the headlines type angle that the show was trying to go for kind of worked. And I'm wondering how you felt about what it was trying to say about the way in which people interact with each other at the moment, and how race is always there and seems to still always be a problem. It's not just solved.
You know, you said something interesting about how this is an issue currently, and immediately I thought about the LA riots when I was a little kid. So I was just in, gosh, maybe 2 or 3 or 4. I can't remember how old I was when the riots happened, but I distinctly remember looking out over the city and seeing smoke billowing up. And
Wow.
I think that this has always been an issue. I think it goes through cycles where we feel that we have overcome something, and then we let it, not that we let it kind of sit. We think we've achieved something and accomplished something, and therefore we've moved on or we've grown or we've expanded. And what we really haven't realized, or maybe that we are coming to realize now, I think, is that we are in this cycle that keeps repeating itself.
Yeah.
And someone said to me this recently, and I really feel this with the show and what it's doing and just how it is mirroring what society is experiencing, is that we are our most honest selves when we're on the precipice of change.
Mm.
And I think that we as a country are going through a very self-reflective state where we are seeing what is happening, we are more aware of it, and therefore we are facing it and becoming more honest with it. And you could almost say that this show, I think, could simply be a natural reaction to what we're facing, that we are starting to become more honest with ourselves as we undergo this change.
Mm. Yeah.
And so it's holding up a mirror, and it's allowing us to, from a safe distance, from the couch of our living room, to look at these stories, which are fictional yet are related to reality, to look at these and allow that to give us an experience and how that experience impacts us.
Mm. Yeah, and that's the beauty of TV, film, literature. All art really should reflect what is going on, if it can, in society, and American Crime does that really well. And that is one of the reasons why this is a really pained segue, I must say, because we're going from something really interesting and deep to something a bit more shallow. But it's one of the reasons why this show has been so well received, critically acclaimed, and we're moving into award season. And let's be honest, that's why we're talking. The Gold Derby, we're an awards website. I don't know if you know much about what we do, but we follow and we track various series and performances and how they're going to fare at award season. And Emmys are coming up, and we think ABC will do very well. They've taken a huge gamble doing a show like this on broadcast TV. It's almost unheard of these days. This feels more like something you would see on AMC or HBO. So if they're going to be rewarded with that type of stuff, you know, awards and so forth, and we've seen the Critics' Choice already bestow a few nominations. How do you feel about the way in which the show is being received critically, and obviously the awards potential it has? Is this something that a young actor like yourself is really keen to follow, or are you removed from it?
You cut out.
Oh, I cut out?
You cut out. You cut out. Yeah, you cut out. You cut out after. Backtrack just a little bit.
Okay, so as a young actor, is this something that you follow or that you're interested in? Do you try to remove yourself from awards and critical acclaim, and do you just focus on the work, or are you always interested in seeing how it's being received by the critics and by awards?
You know, I have to say, I mean, like you said, this is a breakout role for me. It feels really like my first time to have actually tested my mettle, and really for myself even to realize my potential. And I honestly, I think that it would be so thrilling, and I'm so excited that the show is getting the critical acclaim that it deserves. I think when people take risks, the fact that these risks are being acknowledged and appreciated on a public spectrum is very, very rewarding in itself. And you know, I'm so happy for Felicity and Elvis for being nominated for the Critics' Choice, and it's so nice to be able to be a part of that with them and experience that with them. But for me, I am still, I mean, I'm not even kidding you, I am still blown away that I got to even have this experience. So when people talk about, you know, Emmy nominations for the show and everything, I think that that is just so phenomenal. But I'm still catching up with, we did this.
Yeah.
We made, you know, it's kind of that feeling like I have when I'm talking to you. I'm like, I'm talking to you about this, and that's all. I mean, I can't even. If you told me a year and a half ago that this would be happening, I would say, psh, yeah, right. I wish in a dream world. So, you know, I'm still pinching myself, and I'm so happy for everything that's coming and everything that's happened for everyone. But I got to live my dream. So I can't imagine how it gets any better.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. You know, you could be doing stuff that you don't like, or you know, you got to do a really challenging role and test yourself, and it turned out really good. That's always a plus. And now people are saying, we like this, and we want to give you some trophies. So I think that's pretty cool.
I don't know about me particularly, but I'm very happy.
Yeah,
I think
you never know.
You know, I'll just think, to be honest, that John Ridley and Michael McDonnell and everyone at ABC, that they took a risk. You know, they took a risk with the show, and then they took a risk with me. You know, I had nothing to show for myself except for what I brought into the room that day. And that to me blows my mind. I can't even, that is such a rare thing, because so often politics and, you know, someone's background, and background by background I mean their resume, and you know, there's so much weight that goes into someone actually getting a role, and the fact that they took that leap, it just means the world to me.
I can imagine. And so there's so much now ahead of you. Are you in season 2? It's been renewed. We all know that, but we don't know whether all of the actors are returning. Are you returning? Can you say, or do you know?
You, I am at this moment. I am not returning. I was told recently, but I was not told that this was disclosed information. So
Okay.
I hope, I hope that I'm not getting anyone in trouble here, but they it was always made to be a limited miniseries. So
Yeah.
beyond this, I don't, I think that it has to do with the plots and the characters that they
Yeah.
are creating. So I don't know what the story is. I don't
Hmm.
know whether there's necessarily a part for me in this next season,
Hmm. That's
but
what you said.
um, but I'm still excited to see what they do with it.
Yeah, it's a novel
I
way to.
can't wait. I think it's
Yeah.
really, really great and exciting, and you know, it's kind of a phenomenal concept that they're working with. So it's really cool.
Yeah, it is cool. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. And if you don't return, if you don't end up returning in the second limited run of this show, then I'm sure we'll be seeing more and more of you, Caitlin. It's always a pleasure to talk to younger actors, kind of at the beginning of their careers. And congratulations on a really brave performance, and good luck for this awards season.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for having me. It means a lot.
Hey, I'm just